Christmas Eve, 1945, Fayetteville, West Virginia. The Sodder house is full of life. George and Jenny Sodder have 9 of their 10 children home for the holidays. Gifts are wrapped. The snow is falling. It is the perfect American picture. But as the children go to sleep, the phone rings. Jenny answers. On the other line, there is a female voice she doesn't recognize, asking for someone she doesn't know. And then, a laugh. A weird, high-pitched, maniacal laugh. Jenny hangs up. She thinks it's just a prank. She doesn't know it was a signal. Hours later, at 1 a.m., the house wakes up to the smell of smoke. George and Jenny escape with 4 of the children. They stand outside in the snow, screaming for the other 5 who sleep in the attic. Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, Betty. They watch the attic windows. They wait for faces to appear. But no one comes to the window. No one screams. And the fire department doesn't come for 7 hours. A house fire is a tragedy. But what happened that night was not just bad luck. It was a cascade of impossible failures. Desperate to save his children, George Sodder runs to the garage to get his ladder. He plans to climb to the attic window. The ladder is usually always in the same spot. Tonight, it is gone. It would be found days later, thrown into a ditch down the road. Plan B. George has 2 coal trucks. He runs to them. He plans to drive a truck under the window and climb on the roof. Both trucks, which worked perfectly the day before, refused to start. Was it the cold? Years later, they would discover the wires had been cut. Not burned. Cut. Even the phone line to the house had been sliced at the top of the pole. This wasn't an accident. Someone disabled the house before lighting the match. And finally, the help. The fire station was only 2.5 miles away. But the fire chief, F.J. Morris, claimed he couldn't drive the fire truck. Why? He couldn't find a driver. He didn't arrive until 8 a.m. The fire had burned out on its own hours ago. The house was nothing but a smoking basement full of ash. Christmas morning. The sun rises over the ruins. George and Jenny, devastated, expect to find the bodies of their 5 children. They are ready to bury them. But as they sift through the ash, they find nothing. No skulls. No long bones. No vertebrae. Not even a tooth. This is where the science contradicts the official story. The local coroner issued death certificates immediately, claiming fire and suffocation. But the Sodders refused to accept it. They researched cremation. They learned that even in a crematorium, burning at 2,000 degrees for 2 hours, bones remain. Teeth remain. The Sodder house burned for only 45 minutes. It was a wood frame house. It is scientifically impossible for 5 human bodies to completely vaporize in a fire that short. They even found kitchen appliances in the rubble that were melted, but still recognizable. So, if the toaster survived, where were the children? Jenny Sodder couldn't sleep. She conducted her own experiments. She burned chicken bones and beef bones in her wood stove to see if they would disappear. They never did. The realization hit her like a lightning bolt: they weren't in the attic. They had been taken before the fire started. The family dedicated their lives to the search. They erected a massive billboard on Route 19. If you drove through West Virginia in the 50s and 60s, you saw the faces of Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty staring at you. But why would someone steal 5 children? The theories turned dark. George Sodder was an Italian immigrant. He was very vocal about his hatred for Benito Mussolini. This made him enemies in the local Italian community. Months before the fire, a visiting salesman had threatened George. He pointed at the house and said, "Your house will go up in smoke, and your children are going to be destroyed." Was this the mafia? Was this political revenge? The authorities wanted the case closed. In a bizarre twist, years later, it was revealed that Fire Chief Morris confessed to burying a heart he found in the ashes. When the Sodders dug it up and sent it to a lab, it turned out to be fresh beef liver. It had never been in a fire. Someone had planted fake evidence to convince the family the children were dead. Why go to such lengths if it was just an accident? Sightings began to pour in. A woman in a Charleston hotel claimed she saw the children a week after the fire. They were with 2 men and 2 women of Italian extraction. She tried to talk to the children, but the men became hostile and forbade her. Were they being moved through an underground network? Sold for adoption? For 20 years, there was silence. Then, in 1968, Jenny Sodder received an envelope in the mail. No return address. Postmark from Kentucky. Inside was a photo of a young man in his mid-20s. The resemblance to her missing son, Louis, was terrifying. The same dark eyes. The same nose. Even the tilt of the chin. On the back, a cryptic handwritten note, Louis Sodder. I love brother Frankie. Illo boys. A 90132. The family was electrified. They hired a private investigator to go to Kentucky. They gave him the photo. They gave him cash. The investigator left, and was never heard from again. He took the money and vanished. Did he find them and get paid off to stay silent? Or was he a con artist preying on a grieving family? The Sodders never found the man in the photo. But they added his face to the billboard. George died in 1969. Jenny died in 1989. They wore black every day for the rest of their lives. They died without ever knowing the truth. The house was never rebuilt. Instead, George planted a garden of flowers where the living room used to be, and tended to it until his death. The official record says they died in the fire. But logic says they didn't. Somewhere, perhaps, 5 children grew up with different names, in different cities, maybe even believing their parents had abandoned them. Or maybe, they watched that billboard from a passing car, and didn't recognize themselves. This is Dormant Files. Do you believe the fire lied? Let us know in the comments.